Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from the World Tourism Network here in Honolulu, Hawaii. With me today is our president, Dr. Peter Tarlow. He's joining us from College Station, Texas today. And we'll be talking about an initiative we started a little bit more than a week ago, and we call it SCREAM. And we call it SCREAM because travel and tourism is screaming for our friends in Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, and I don't have to explain it, is going through a terrible situation with millions of people on the run, refugees all over Europe. They're talking about the worst refugee crisis ever in Europe, even more than World War II and more than the Syria crisis recently. And people in Ukraine are suffering. They're suffering from east to west, from north to south. There is no difference, and have been incredibly brave going against the invasion initiated by Russia. The industry, of course, travel and tourism industry is non-existent in a time of war, but those that are employed or run the travel and tourism industry have come together, like everyone else in Ukraine. In our case, there's Ivan from the National Tourism Association. There's Annette from the, she is pretty much what is the Minister of Tourism in Ukraine, bringing in also the Hotel Association and others. And we all joined together, and actually we signed an MOU to work together on SCREAM to get awareness for what is going on in travel and tourism. We've also worked with many others and mentioned many others, like SCOL Romania, for example, that had put together a network that is helping refugees in Romania able to get settled in Romania or to go on to other destinations. I know from many, and I wish I could give the names, but everyone here, Peter knows her and also the other gentleman very well in Europe. They told us, please don't mention our names, but just for your information, we took a Ukrainian family, we remodeled a little bit our living room, and they're sleeping here, and we're hosting them till they find something else. So people in Europe really have been going out of their way to help Ukraine. We also, on the other side, just today received a number of very angry letters with words I cannot repeat from our friends in Russia, travel and tourism companies. Some of them we actually worked with as advertisers and as partners in the past in Russia. So it's important to say that SCREAM is screaming out for Ukraine, but it's not screaming against the travel and tourism industry and the people behind it in Russia. The war is not anyone in tourism wants, because tourism is an industry of peace, understanding. Tourism is a custodian of peace. And as much as we have friends in Russia, as much we also have friends in Ukraine, and we wish everyone could be together. And this is really the irony in this whole thing. And then let Peter say something. The irony is that Ukrainian people and Russian peoples are like brothers and sisters. There is hardly anyone in Ukraine who doesn't have a relative or a friend in Russia, and many times the other way around. And even within Ukraine, it's the longest war, actually twice the time of World War II, has been going on as a civil war between the Donbas region and the rest of Ukraine, many times forgotten. So many of the people now that are originally or are living in the Donbas region are very skeptical to anyone and anything what comes from Ukraine, their own country, and maybe trust the Russians even more. It's a terrible situation. Everyone is against everyone, but everyone is a brother and a sister of everyone else. So I don't really know the way out, but we're here to help wherever we can help. And we are here to tell the world travel and tourism is an industry of peace. And we're here to assist. So anyone who wants to work with us can go to scream.travel. There's a form. You can volunteer, you can donate money, you can give ideas, you can tell us your best or your activities we can share with others in the World Tourism Network and with our media partners. We don't really know exactly what we can do, but we're trying our best. And that's where we stand, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, of course, you're absolutely right. This is an incredibly difficult situation. Neither you nor I are going to solve it. It's been a situation that's been going on for a long time. What we can do, though, is we do know at some point the hostilities will come to an end. And in that case, this is where I think the World Tourism Network can step in. because the World Tourism Network is composed of small businesses around the world. And one of the things I think we're going to need is to create a system of expertise and ideas that will allow not only the Ukraine to rebuild, but if we're really fair, also much of the Russian tourism industry to be rebuilt. Now, they haven't had the physical destruction that much of the Ukraine has had, but because of the sanctions and other issues, um, many of the people in Russia who are in tourism have also lost their livelihood. So I think, there will be a need to rebuild. There'll be a need to reconstruct. Europe has traditionally, unfortunately, always had every 50 to 70 years some form of conflagration that takes place on the continent. And Europe is a fascinating place because it's where people are very similar and yet very different. And maybe we sometimes get angry at those people who are most similar to us. Um, that's to be thought through philosophically later. But the bottom line is that the worst Holocaust in the history of mankind took place in Europe only 70 years ago. We've forgotten that only 30 years ago, there was terrible fighting in the Balkans. And I have worked with the Croatians and with the Serbians and trying to rebuild, and they're still not 100% back. And that took place in the 90s. And it's now 30 years ago, and there's still a lot that has to be reconstructed. So this is not going to take place instantaneously. There's a lot of wounded egos, a lot of wounded people, a lot of destruction that's taken place because of this. And I think the tourism industry is going to have to be very sensitive to helping people slowly rebuild themselves psychologically, physically, and economically. And those are going to be three very different concepts. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're calling it Scream, is because it's almost the frustration of knowing that how hurt people are going to be. And you can't just sign a peace treaty and everything is okay, because people have long memories. In Europe, especially, they have extremely long memories. And people can tell you, your great, 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 great grandmother wasn't nice to my great, 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 great grandfather in the 16th century. And you go, wow, we're 400 years later. And that's actually happened to me, where people have yelled and screamed at me because of the fact of something that took place 400 years ago, and why was I aware of it? So this is going to be a time to learn to put down the sword. This is time really, to live by the words of the prophet that let us, the exact Hebrew is lo yisagoy el goy chereb lo yilmadu od milchama, that people should not lift up the sword against each other, nor should we study war anymore. And if we can use that concept within the tourism industry, then I think we can help people to begin to heal. They won't be healed, but we can begin to help them to heal. And that's really what we're trying to do, is helping in the healing. And we care about everyone. Russia, Ukrainian, there are people in Poland, there are people in in the Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Romania, and Hungary. Around the world, people are taking in Ukrainians. In the last day or so, another 5,000 Ukrainians have arrived in Israel. So, and all those are, and the United States has now said that it will be taking in 100,000 Ukrainians. So some of these people don't want to go that far away from home. And I understand that. They're hoping to return. But it'll be our job to help them not only return, but to create the economic wherewithal so they'll be able to return. That's going to be hard, but I think we can do it.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to this page of this conflict soon, very sooner than later, because right now, of course, there is a lot of fighting, there is a lot of suffering, and a lot of people die unnecessary. And it's just absolutely terrible what is going on a daily basis. And we never know when we wake up and watch the news, what happened during the time we were asleep, what happened. And it seems not to really loosen up. It's getting worse and worse. And
yes, it has been. The other possibility, like any war, is like a disease, and any disease can spread. And we may discover that this war spreads to other parts of Europe. We may also discover that it sets off problems in the Asian Pacific and in other parts of the world. And, all of a sudden we discover we're in a World War III. So let's hope that's wrong. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But the best way to not have World War III is to contain this war and then bring it to its conclusion.
And communication, of course, is important. The president for Ukraine is correct. He should be talking to President Putin
Right.
to find some kind of a solution.
Yes.
Ukraine, we shouldn't forget, is the largest country in Europe. It actually has more territory in Europe than Russia, even though Russia is the largest country in the world. And ironically, when I heard it's about the same size as Texas, so I didn't know you guys in Texas are so big. And
We are. Yes. I know you're coming here to go to an eye doctor in El Paso. And you said to me, well, stop by and see you in College Station. I said, you're 1,000 miles away. And you said, really? I said, yeah, Texas is a big state.
Yeah, and so that would be a huge mission to conquer and take over a country of that size. So
Yes.
even if Russia wants it, and even if Russia takes over cities, to take over the entire country is a task I don't think even Russia could fully
So
master.
real
And it
issue
also
is-
takes the heart of the people. And the heart of the people is not where Russia wants it to be.
Yeah. So, I think in Ukraine, you hear people say, we speak Russian, but we're not Russian. Now, I know and I know they also have Ukrainian, but many Ukrainians do speak Russian, but they're not Russian. And, just like we speak English, but we're not English, or someone in Australia or Canada. So the real issue, though, is we need people to come up with ideas and to come up with suggestions of what they can do. In other words, it's really easy for me to tell you to do something. For example, when this is all over, maybe I'll be able to go to Ukraine and talk to them about issues of security. And right now, they don't need tourism security because they don't have any tourism. But there will be a time when that will take place, and when we can talk about letting people feel free to walk the streets again and not suffer. And that will help tourism to grow. So I think it's our job to create the economic conditions so that there will be growth.
And that's why we need everyone's help, where
exactly.
everyone can contribute to Scream.travel with ideas, share your activities you're doing. Also, you can lobby for certain things to happen, because I mean, there are many organizations in the travel and tourism industry, also some that wanted to be the top leaders of the industry. They haven't said anything.
Right.
And it's time to scream. It's time to say something. Something is wrong here. And that's really what we do. So
Right.
for those that haven't heard about Scream.travel, click on the banner on top of all of our websites or go to Scream.travel to learn more. And if you want to get involved, just click on the button and you can send us a message. We're seeing all these messages, even though there are many of these messages coming in. So we may not always be able to respond immediately. But believe me, when you send it, we know it, and we're going to act on it.
Great. And I think this is something that all the members of the World Tourism Network can be proud of. That it's something that we are coming together, and that's the purpose of the World Tourism Network, was to really bring people together so that people in the tourism industry are helping other people in the tourism industry. So I think we should be very proud of that.
You should be a member, because only with members and the little money we're asking, from most, it's not more than $90 a year. That helps us to go through all of this, because after all, we're doing all of this out of our own time on a volunteer basis.
Right.
And but we need to cover the basics, and the more we can cover the basics through memberships, the better we are. So I encourage everyone to join World Tourism Network. Just go to WTN.travel or to worldtourismnetwork.org. It goes to the same page, and you click on join and join us. And it'll be worth your $90, believe me.
So let's scream and let's pray and let's do. So
All right.
I think that should become our theme. Scream, pray, do. For that, I'm going to wish you a good evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.
you.
And thank you for joining.
All right.
Visit us at Scream.travel.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.